My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a detransitioner. I was kind of in the middle of being a girly girl and a tomboyish archetype throughout most of my childhood. But I found that, especially as I got older, I started to gravitate a little bit more towards like my dad and my older brothers, and eventually my male peers. I just found it that they were a lot more relatable, a lot more easygoing and fun. And even when it came to things like my own personality and the way that I presented myself, I grew less and less comfortable with having long hair or things like purses or dresses, skirts, and eventually as I started going through puberty, I became very, very deeply uncomfortable with that and the changes that were coming with me growing into a woman as well. So I started to think like, what's wrong with me? What is it that is making me so different? I struggled with myself for years and with trying to build an identity and feel like I had a place in the world where I could belong until I discovered the transgender community online. And I was about 12 years old by this point in time, maybe a little bit younger. I think this was around the time that I got my first cell phone, and I had heard the word transgender a few times, but I thought it was just kind of a funny concept, and I didn't really care for it until I was actually seeing it just being presented to my face through my usage of social media. And it was through these communities that were based around things like that I was interested in, like video games, illustration, character design. A lot of these users were kids my age, or maybe a little bit older, who identified with the opposite sex or another part of the LGBT community. But it was primarily like these girls who called themselves males. And they just seemed so similar to me. They were tomboys growing up in all sorts of different ways. They had struggled with their relationships at home or with their peers or with bullying. And just like me, they couldn't really find like a means of understanding themselves or connecting with other people. But they seemed to be so happy and they were so fulfilled in identifying as transgender. I started to connect it to myself, and I was like, maybe the reason why I'm so interested in this is because I'm one of them. I wasn't supposed to be a girl. That's why I'm so uncomfortable with myself and my developing female body, and why I don't always necessarily get along with the other women around me. It's because I was born with a male brain, and I just so happen to have a female body. And now I finally have a path through which I can finally be seen as the person who I've always wanted to be. About maybe half a year or so of being exposed to this content was when I decided to go all in and to transition. And before I actually had started going by alternative labels like pansexual or agender or all of these crazy things that honestly just don't make sense. But to a 12-year-old's mind, with all the colorful flags and new words and just the novelty of it all, it's kind of exciting. It's kind of fun. It's kind of like a game and trying to find new ways to express yourself, right? Because you're at that age where you want to like sort of branch out and show everybody who you are. I came out, I think, first to people online, and then an older sister of mine before I told my mom and dad about it. They were supportive of me, and they were proud of me for trying to branch out and find a new means of expressing and exploring myself, but they also were very cautious as well. They never believed that I was transgender or a boy or anything like that. They had always just seen me as their daughter, and they understood that, you know, I'd always been a little bit tomboyish, and maybe my learning disability, maybe having ADHD and these other psychiatric issues that I was going through at the time, the loneliness of being sort of an outcast at school was making it hard for me to kind of understand myself, and that this was just a consequence of that. They decided that They were going to send me to a therapist after a few days of doing a little bit of research. They didn't expect that by going to therapy, I would be separated from them, that they wouldn't be allowed in the room during these appointments, and so they wouldn't know what we were talking about, or that these doctors or these psychological professionals would goad them into going along with it, rather than just allowing me to develop like any other kid and just grow up without any intervention. They were kind of upset about that, naturally. And they decided that they were going to take matters into their own hands and speak to the psychologists themselves. And they were asking all the right questions, like, so why does she want to do this? What is making her feel this way? And why do we have to jump into this right now? Why does she want to undergo the medical process of a gender transition when maybe we could just wait until she's like a little bit older, preferably at least legally an adult, and understands perhaps what it is that she wants to do in life a little bit better? Why does it have to happen now? What are the chances that she's going to regret this and stop, maybe? And if she regrets it, like, what do we do? What do we do about that? And it's like all of their concerns were just ignored. And almost like these doctors at multiple steps of the way just had this script to go by whenever parents asked these perfectly reasonable questions. They told them, like, well, your child just doesn't have any other choice, you know? This is who he is. This is your transgender son. You have to go along with this. If he is expressing discontent with his body and he wants to undergo the medical procedures, you must allow him to do so. And they really drilled it hard into my mom and dad's head that, like, you're gonna have to choose basically between having a live son or a dead daughter. And it's the only choice that they give parents. They say it's transition or die. So the medical process began with the use of puberty blockers and the administration of weekly injections of testosterone. And it started with the blockers first. So I was on a drug called Lupron, which historically has been used to treat late-stage cancer or toddler onset puberty or castrating sex offenders. So very rapid physical changes happened. And there also were emotional and behavioral and psychological changes as well. It just completely changed the way that I experienced emotions. My surgery consultations began when I was 14 years old, and they went on for maybe about a year or less. I ended up going under the knife the summer just after my sophomore year. I was 15. I was not quite old enough yet to drive a car, but I could get my perfectly healthy breast removed. And it was not easy. It was not an easy process to deal with or cope with at all. That marked the first point in my transition where I began to feel like real, genuine grief and regret just flooding through like a storm. Regret and detransitioning were never spoken about during any of the consultations for any of the treatments. Not even to me after my mom and dad brought it up. But with how tough the post-op process was, it really just, it woke up something in me. Something changed the day of surgery, and as soon as I woke up, and as soon as I went home, and once I had the stitches taken out, and I had to start taking care of the wounds, and looking down at that area of my chest, that area of my body, and what was left of my breast every single day, it was horrific. I couldn't stand what I was seeing. I was having a major identity crisis during this point, and I was taking a class in psychology at this point in time, and the end of the course was very focused on family, and particularly children and how they develop from infancy. And one particular lesson involved breastfeeding. And then I had this moment of like, what have I done to myself? This is beautiful. This is incredible. I'm never gonna be able to do it. And that was the moment of like, I can't go any further. I can't keep doing this to myself. This is destroying me. This is horrific. I don't even know if there is any going back, but I sure am not going forward. And so I made the choice to detransition. I went off hormones cold turkey. I never wanted to look at the syringe ever again. My decision was not one that was made with any sort of religious intentions or beliefs in mind, because at the time I was completely agnostic. I was in deep, deep suffering. And I started to think, if there's a God out there, he's gotta absolutely hate me. It wasn't until I began speaking out publicly that I started going on this advocacy journey that I've connected with a bunch of different Christians, both individuals and groups and churches and pastors and other leaders who have not only given me a place of comfort where I know I'm loved and appreciated, but also have challenged me in my old beliefs and my old values and everything that I knew before, and have guided me to the truth. And slowly over time, I started to realize that I wasn't a mistake, that I was created perfectly the way that I was, that my design was one lovingly made with full intention, and that even the scars, the mental scars and the literal scars, were beautiful. There is no my truth or your truth. I've come to the conclusion that Jesus is the truth. And it's that newfound faith that gives me a reason to fight. I not only want to serve as a cautionary tale, but also as a tale of triumph, because I am not just a tragedy. I want to show people that there is life after transition, that there's life after any tragedy in one's life, that you can live beyond whatever it is that you've lost, because there is so much more to live and to fight for. I am just so grateful that I've been given this purpose, that I have this gift now that allows me to transform all of the pain that I've been through and all the pain that my family has been through to help others, to help other children, young men and women, and struggling families, and to make sure that what happened to me will no longer repeat itself ever again.